president wrapping up 3 days of visits to Capitol Hill, meeting with top Republican lawmakers and trying to reach a compromise on the nation's budget problems. How optimistic should we be after the week that we had? Who better to ask than White House Press Secretary Jay Carney? So, Jay, where does the president see specifically some common ground to build upon?
Well, Jenna, as you know, he met with Republicans and Democrats in both the House and the Senate this week, and that's building on a series of engagements he's had with lawmakers, including, as you know, the dinner he had with a group of Republican senators last week. And what he's looking for is a conversation with those members of the Republican Party in particular who are interested in returning to a big deal and to accepting the premise that we can find common ground here when we try to resolve our budget differences and put ourselves on a deficit reduction path by agreeing that we should pair cuts to our entitlements, reforms to our entitlements, with tax reform that also generates revenue. You know, the notion that if we're going to ask more of our seniors and middle-class families, that we ought to ask a little more from the well-off and well-to-do through tax reform.
So let me ask,
there's been some. Go ahead.
Let me just ask you a little bit about that, because the president has said that he's open to changing the way that Social Security benefits, the increase for Social Security benefits are figured out, are calculated. He said that he's open to that as part of a big deal. But if the president feels so strongly that changing that would be great for our country as a whole, why not just do it? Why use it as a bargaining chip?
Well, sure, Jenna, I know that's certainly the Republican line, that we should do what they want to do and what's hard for Democrats, but not what's hard for Republicans. And that's not how balance works. Why should we ask seniors to give, but allow the well-off and well-to-do to keep special tax loopholes and exemptions in the tax code that achieved largely through lobbyist work, and not ask them to pay a little bit more?
But if it's for the good of the country, Jay, if it's for what's best for everybody, then why not consider it?
Well, because what's good for the country is balance. Because if you don't have balance, Jenna, you have what we see in the Ryan budget. The Tax Policy Center today said that the tax cuts that go disproportionately to the wealthy in the Ryan budget would cost $5.7 trillion. Guess who pays for that? Middle-class families. There's no way to get revenue-neutral tax reform to the tune of $5.7 trillion without sticking it to the middle class, to the tune of thousands of dollars a year.
So has
that's just how it works.
Has anything changed,
that's how
Jay?
the math works.
Has anything changed really in the last week? We started out talking about common ground and maybe turning a corner for a bigger deal, something that could really help this nation. Are things any different this Friday from last Friday?
Well, the conversations have continued. As you know, one of the reasons the president asked Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, to organize a group of senators for that dinner the other night was because many Republican senators have expressed interest in a bigger deal, and some have very explicitly said that they would agree to a package of entitlement savings reforms with tax reform that generated revenue. Senator Graham himself has said so explicitly. And what's encouraging about that is that's where the country is. I mean, the polls on this are unequivocal. I mean, you know, the only place where you can find disagreement about the need to move forward with balance is up on Capitol Hill, you know, among some Republicans, especially in the House.
Okay.
Because the public thinks balance is what we ought to do.
So let me ask you a little bit about these White House tours. The president gave an interview earlier this week, and he said, you know, this isn't a White House decision, it's a Secret Service decision, but I'm going to ask, I'm paraphrasing the president, I'm going to ask to see if they can figure out a way to get school kids in. He also said, though, that this is a consequence of sequestration. So, Jay, which is it? Is there room to change this, or is this the consequence of sequester?
Well, it is the consequence of sequester. I'm surprised to hear the suggestion this late date that it's anything else. The Secret Service, like every agency in government, has to cut its budget significantly because of sequester. That's how the law was written, and that's what everyone's doing at Defense and everywhere else across the government, including the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Secret Service.
But the White House is going to be open for the Easter egg roll for families, for Congress, but not open for families that are just, you know, regular families out there that want to visit the White House.
Well, actually, Jenna, again, if you did a little reporting, you'd know that the Easter egg roll is open for a lot of military families, A. B, it's paid for by the sale of those, those eggs that come out, as well as from donations on the outside. So it's a totally different budget.
Okay.
It's, you know, these are apples and oranges. Secondly, the president did ask, and there are conversations ongoing, whether or not there's some accommodation that can be made for some tours to take place. But the overall policy of canceling the tours has to happen because the Secret Service doesn't have the personnel to staff that very labor-intensive process. If it staffed those tours with a full return of the tours, it would have to furlough Secret Service agents and cut their pay, which is not a happy option.
Well, as a member of the military family, I appreciate the fact that military families are invited to that Easter egg roll. Final question for you here, Jay, on the Benghazi terror attack. There was some headlines today, some exclusive reporting done by our team here at Fox News that 3 diplomatic security agents were injured in that attack. And lawmakers and journalists would like access to some of these survivors, either these 3 or any others that are out there. Is this White House preventing those survivors from speaking publicly or asking them not to?
First of all, I have no knowledge of this story. Secondly, I'm sure that the White House is not preventing anyone from speaking. What happened in Benghazi was a tragedy. It resulted in the death of 4 Americans. From the instant that it happened, the President ordered every action to be taken to ensure that our embassies were secure and that an investigation was launched so that this kind of thing could never happen again. And this President also made clear that those who were responsible for the deaths of 4 brave Americans in Benghazi would be held accountable, and that investigation continues. Our interest is on what happened in Benghazi and not on the political ramifications of this political debate that we've seen over the course of the last several months, and the President's focused on that.
So does the President have an official position at all at helping lawmakers or Congress get access to the survivors? Will the White House be part of that process?
Again, Jen, I appreciate it. I just don't even, I'm not familiar with the story.
Okay.
I should have been watching Fox earlier. I'm sure we can get more information on that for you.
That would be great, Jay. We always appreciate it. You want to make this a regular Friday thing? We're open to it.
Hey,
if you're available.
I'm always happy to be on your air.
Thank you. Jay, nice to see you. Thank you for the time.
All right. You too,
and we'll
Jen.
be right
Take
back
care.
with more happening now.